friends, welcome to Tuesday. Today I have chapter 12 of Pugs of the Frozen North for you, and there are actually only 14 chapters in this book. So we have today, tomorrow, and Thursday, and then on Friday we will get to start a new book. So last time we read, I have to even remember what happened last time. They were getting it close, and Shen and Sika had been saving the other contestants as they fell into the canyon. Let's see if they can make it to the Snow Palace. Chapter 12. Sir Basil looked back and saw the procession that was following him. Remember, Sir Basil is the only one ahead of them now. Sika with his testing stick, the pugs, the pink huskies, the two sleds, and the polar bears. Shen, Helga, Shackleton, Jones, and Snowbot. Look, Sideplate, they've almost caught up to us. Indeed, Sir Basil. The crossing of the snow bridge has lost us a great deal of time, sir. Sir Basil looked ahead. He saw the wide plain of ice that still separated him from the palace of the Snowfather. Plenty of room on a plain like that for those kids to slip ahead of him. The pugs of theirs were better sled dogs than he thought, and he knew that Shackleton's high-tech sled was speedier than his. I think it's time for some more dirty tricks, Sideplate. Oh, dear, sir, said Sideplate. Are you sure that's necessary, sir? Well, of course it is. Sir Basil laughed a wicked laugh and twirled his mustache, but it had frozen solid, and the end snapped off. Sideplate, sighing sadly, opened Sir Basil's expensive antique gun case and lifted out Sir Basil's expensive antique rocket launcher. I really must protest, Sir Basil, he said as he handed it over. Your behavior is most unsporting. When we return to London, I shall give you my resignation, sir. That means he's going to quit. Do whatever you like, Sideplate, sneered Sir Basil, getting the rocket launcher ready and pointing it at the snow bridge that the others were just about to cross. I will have had my wish granted by then. I'll be the richest man in the world, and I'll be able to hire billions of better butlers than you, fool. Very good, sir, said Sideplate. He winced as Sir Basil pulled the trigger and a rocket went shooting toward the snow bridge. Shen winced, too, ducking as the rocket swerved over his head in a rush of sparks and smoke. Sir Basil had terrible aim. He had missed the bridge completely, but the rocket hit one of the other bridges way off on the far side of the canyon. The bridge burst apart and fell into the depths, and the bridge next to it began to crumble too, and then two more bridges joined in. The whole beautiful maze of bridges began to quiver, sag, crumble, and collapse. So you can see them in that corner, launching their rockets. Quick, shouted Sika, running down the last bridge. Quick, I mean mush, shouted Shen, urging the pugs after her. The others followed as quickly as they dared. Shackleton Jones and his pink team, Snowbot and Helga and her bears. Behind them, the final bridge was disintegrating with a rush and a roar of falling snow. For a moment, Shen was sure that they were all going to fall into the chasm and be eaten by the snow trolls, whom he could hear jeering and cheering down there. Then he saw that the end of the bridge was only a few yards away, and that they were going to make it after all. And then he noticed Sir Basil was taking aim with another rocket, and this time the travelers were so close that Shen was pretty sure he couldn't miss. Take this, you scum, sneered Sir Basil, but just as he pulled the trigger, Sideplate's snow boot kicked the rocket launcher upward. The rocket whizzed harmlessly off into the sky to burst somewhere among the northern lights. Sideplate, you spoil sport, sputtered Sir Basil. The bridges were still crumbling, filling the air above the chasm with a haze of powdered snow. Sideplate ran to meet Sika and the others as they came spilling onto the ice. The bridge they just crossed disintegrated behind them, almost taking Shackleton Jones with it, but he and Snowbot managed to leap to safety as their sled dropped into the chasm. Helga quickly cut the pink dog's harnesses to stop them from going with it. I must apologize for Sir Basil's behavior, ladies and gentlemen, said Sideplate, helping Shackleton Jones climb over the edge of the chasm. He's always been most unsporting. So long, Sideplate, called Sir Basil, leaping aboard his sled. I'll go even faster without you. His long whip cracked above his husky's ears, and they started to run toward the far-off Igloo Palace. But just then, with a massive thump, a big, jagged, glowing thing came slamming down. smashing the sled to pieces and catapulting Sir Basil high into the air. So there's Sir Basil flying into the air. Something hit him. That last rocket had done a lot of damage when it exploded up there among the northern lights. Now broken shards of light were dropping all around, freezing as they plummeted into the chilly sky. Shen and his friends waited until the rain of broken lights was over and then picked their way between the shards to where Basil's sled lay splintered. Sideplate disentangled the dogs, who ran off in all directions, woofing happily. Sir Basil had landed in a deep drift of snow. He scrambled out, shouting more threats and shaking his fists. But his fists seemed smaller than before. All of him did. He was dwindling before their eyes, shrinking down and down until he was no bigger than a toy soldier, while his voice grew higher and higher. "You menacing morons! Look what you've made me do! I've fallen into a patch of shrink snow!" "Careful," said Helga, lassoing the tiny cheat with the pug leash. "We mustn't touch the patch of snow ourselves." "If those dogs get any smaller, we might not be able to see them at all," said Shackleton Jones. Helga reeled Sir Basil in until he was close enough for her to reach out and pick him up. He kept being terribly rude at first until he realized just how tiny he'd become. Then he said, "No hard feelings, all right?" "I don't know," said Shackleton Jones. Is there a cure for shrink snow?" asked Shen. "I don't know," said Shackleton Jones. "The effects may wear off eventually." "But I can't stay this size forever," wailed Sir Basil. Helga handed him to Sideplate, who put him in a lunchbox for safekeeping, making sure to punch some air holes in the lid first. They could hear his tiny, angry voice buzzing in there as they set off again toward the Icicle Palace. So here is tiny Sir Basil holding on to the dog leash. It really wasn't a race anymore. They all just felt that, having come so far, they should at least say hello to the Snow Father. There was not enough room in the sled for all of them, so they took turns walking. It was hard work crossing the ice, for it was very slippery, and although it had been flat from the snow bridges, it had actually sloped very steeply upward. And as they trudged up the slope, so it grew colder. Shen didn't think it could get any colder, but it did. He had grown used to seeing his breath come out as steam, but at the top of the world each steamy breath froze solid as soon as he breathed, and it fell to the ice in front of him with a little tinkly sound, like a dropped ornament. It was so cold that the pugs who had run so far and were so brave in their little sweaters began to shiver, and their tiny feet grew numb, and soon they could barely walk at all. Then Sideplate and Helga gathered them up, and Helga wrapped them all in her beard, which was still extravagantly long and white and warm after her meal of Yeti noodles and Lost Hope. Their little faces peeked out as she plodded onward. Here's another picture of Sir Basil being held at the lunchbox. As she plodded onward, and Sika, Shen, and Shackleton harnessed the two polar bears and the pink huskies and Sir Basil's dogs into the sled instead. "Soon it will be too cold to talk," Shen started to say, but already it was too cold to talk. He decided to keep his mouth shut in case his tongue froze solid like a pink popsicle. And then it was too cold to think. It was as if the ice had gotten inside his head and all his thoughts had slowed down and stopped, like fish in the frozen sea. But he kept trudging on, putting one cold foot in front of the other, and suddenly he felt a cold ease a little, and then a little more, and then he raised his eyes, which had been watching only the ice in front of him, and there was the igloo palace of the Snow Father, towering up into the sky in front of him, a huge drone of snow, with spires and towers and turrets spurting all around it, and snow chimneys sending up little curls of smoke to tangle in the northern lights. And sitting in front of the high white wall that ran around the Icicle Palace was a huge old man, bigger even than Sika's grandpa. "I'm so glad you made it," he said, and his voice was warm and rich like a wintertime desert. "Now, which of you is the winter? Whose wish shall I grant?" They made it to the Snow Palace, and here you can see the Snow Father down at the bottom. We'll have to see who gets their wish granted tomorrow with Chapter 13.